Good afternoon, and thank you, Jen, Robin, and Jean. Hasn't this been an absolutely fabulous conference? On behalf of the entire Assets and Opportunity Network, which now includes more than 500 members, I want to thank Andrea and Jen and all the CFED staff who have supported the formation of the network over the past 30 years. It's truly amazing to see how the field has transformed and where we are now, and CFED has been with us every step along the way. I also want to thank all the funders in the room for putting their belief in the power of networks into action. On Wednesday, we had the first meeting of the 61 lead state and local organizations in the new Assets and Opportunity Network. What we've done since then, and will continue to do going forward, is build out the network so that it includes not only all of you, but your networks at home. Could everyone who is now a member of the Assets and Opportunity Network please stand up? And now could you please stand if you're planning to join before you leave the conference? Andrea mentioned earlier that we're in the middle of the Jewish High Holy Days, so this is network recruitment by guilt. So thank you all for your dedication. I'm looking out at a sea of talented, committed, and I hope energized advocates. And when I think that we're all connected to another 20 or 50 or 500 people back home, the possibilities seem limitless. This is how we take our efforts to the next level. We are the core of the sacred effort to transform this country into its best self and make it whole that Cory Booker spoke of so eloquently yesterday. The sacred effort that not only steadies the ladder of opportunity, but also tests each rung, makes it stronger, and redesigns it when needed, maybe with the help of a little behavioral economics. In these early network meetings, we've talked about the value proposition in working together in a more strategic way, so that as a movement, we can amplify our voice on the issues we care so much about. These include the opportunity to shape the direction and priorities of the asset building field, to influence federal policy decisions, access a larger pool of funders, and learn from peers and add knowledge to the field. All throughout this conference, I've heard a real emphasis on testing what we know, on finding what works, on best practices, on really putting ourselves under the microscope in terms of understanding what works. And that is a wonderful and capacity building focus. As we emerge, the Network Steering Committee has also identified several experiments where we can learn about where our energy, power, and resources lie. We chose experiments that we felt would meet a set of important criteria. Collective impact that is greater than what can be done alone. Opportunities to learn from each other. Relevance to members with opportunities for engagement at the local, state, and federal levels, and the ability to attract funders who want to see a scalable and sustainable impact. Using these criteria, the Network Steering Committee came up with a few initial ideas. The first is encouraging formation of learning action groups. These would be time-limited, self-selected small groups structured to focus on a specific issue, for example, children's savings accounts, and led by a network lead state or lead local organization. The focus of these groups is on learning together and then exploring joint action. Second, strengthening the capacity of state and local coalitions. One initial idea is to create an innovative state and local policy playbook that leverages the innovation across our field and shares it broadly with members. Third, hosting an annual national dialogue to set priorities, build relationships, and learn. I think we've all had the experience of action alert fatigue. But if we can set some priorities that we all agree we want to work on together and can commit ourselves to putting the time in to move those 2 or 3 or 5 issues forward, we can make a tremendous collective impact. Fourth, engaging in coordinated action to take advantage of pressing policy opportunities. And finally, exploring ways to increase overall funding and sustainability for the field. We have a start, but more than anything, we welcome your ideas and your participation. There's much to do when we leave today, but we mustn't forget what a tremendous privilege it is to be able to dedicate ourselves to work that can transform lives. Richard Cordray quoted Camus yesterday in saying, "The struggle alone is enough to fill a man's heart." We certainly know it's enough to fill each of our days and many nights. But if we can each go home and commit ourselves to at least 30 minutes a week, dedicated to expanding the work of the network, our impact will multiply in ways we can only imagine. With 1,000 members, which is an easily achievable goal, that's 500 hours, the equivalent of more than 50 days, devoted to moving us ahead each week. Send an interesting article to some of your colleagues or your member of Congress while you're watching TV. Take 10 minutes before you begin your workday to be an active participant in an assets listserv. All those little contributions add up. Does that sound familiar? We know that the poor can save, and we know that the overcommitted can network. Lastly, Jen showed us the slides earlier that had a visual representation of where we want to go as a national network, somewhere between a hub and spoke model and something completely free-form and chaotic. I've been struggling with how to think about and describe what form can best release the huge potential that I see in this room. But last night I hit on an analogy that makes sense to me, being a former saxophone player, and that is jazz. Thelonious Monk, the brilliant jazz pianist and a fellow North Carolinian, said, "The philosophy of jazz represents tolerance, teamwork, and inclusion. That's what America is about. The music reflects that." Because jazz starts from a solid structure and then moves back and forth between melody and improvisation, soloing and playing together, where everyone has their moment to shine, but at the same time, everyone supports the whole. I look forward to working with all of you to make our vision of a truly inclusive America a reality.